This simply should not be happening right before our eyes. For decades, we have pointed our best telescopes at this nearby and familiar celestial object. We were absolutely certain of its dead, cold, and unchanging nature. Scientists considered the lunar surface to be the most studied and predictable place in all of space. But what we have learned very recently completely shatters our reliable scientific theories. Data from recent Chinese missions categorically do not match our familiar Earth-based models. Astronomers have long established precise cooling schedules for small planetary bodies in a vacuum. The calculations always indicated extremely clear timelines for the complete physical demise of the lunar interior. We sincerely and naively believed in the infallibility of these lengthy mathematical computations. However, reality turned out to be far stranger, more complex, and more frightening for modern science. Spacecraft were supposed to simply confirm our old and proven school truths. Engineers expected to receive the usual samples of very ancient and frozen cosmic dust. Instead, ultra-precise instruments recorded traces that were absolutely impossible from a physical standpoint. Our cozy picture of the world suddenly collided with harsh and completely inexplicable facts. Earth's satellite had been hiding a grand secret from us for many long centuries. Our native solar system has always seemed to us to be a very understandable and predictable mechanism. It is governed by strict basic rules governing the formation of planets and their subsequent slow demise. According to all known laws of physics, our moon should have died out completely billions of years ago. Its small core simply had to quickly release its heat into open space. We expected to see nothing but a lifeless gray rock, forever frozen in the eternal cold void. Astronomy textbooks confidently told us about the completely finished geological history of this satellite. We thought that all the great cataclysms there had long since ceased their activity. The surface was considered merely a passive and silent target for random meteorite impacts. This deathly silence lulled us into a false sense of absolute planetary safety. It seemed to us that there were no hidden or unpredictable threats right on our doorstep. For a long time, we slept soundly under this dim and familiar nightlight. Scientists shifted their close attention to more distant and mysterious exoplanets. The moon began to seem too simple and boring for serious and expensive space exploration. We arrogantly decided that humanity had already read this book to the very last page. And that was our greatest and most fatal mistake in the history of modern astrophysics. Now, with growing horror, we are beginning to grasp the full depth of our long-standing scientific ignorance. It turns out that we know absolutely nothing about the basic principles governing our own physical world. Beneath a thin layer of gray dust lie clear traces of incredibly powerful and incomprehensible processes. These processes run counter to our entire established understanding of global planetary evolution. And this directly implies that we have been fundamentally mistaken from the very beginning of our research. If our core formulas don't even work in the orbit of our home planet, this is a real catastrophe. We constantly use these very same formulas to assess the overall safety of the entire solar system. We make long-term predictions about Earth's future based exclusively on this false database. Now, the entire foundation of modern space science has developed a massive and irreparable crack. We have found ourselves utterly blind and helpless in the face of the real, unpredictable universe. What China recently discovered changes more than just the history of this one small satellite. This shocking discovery sets off an irreversible chain reaction that shatters all our old scientific dogmas. We are now forced to rethink every stage of the formation of our shared cosmic home. Familiar theories are crumbling to dust under the incredible weight of new, irrefutable material evidence. A daunting intellectual journey awaits us into a completely new and terrifyingly unknown reality. We can no longer carelessly ignore this very alarming call from deep space. The quiet and painfully familiar moonlight suddenly seems cold and secretly threatening to us. Our closest cosmic neighbor turned out to be far from as simple as we were comfortable thinking. It harbors anomalies capable of completely overturning our basic perception of the entire universe. And the most frightening thing is that we still do not understand their true causes at all. According to everything we know, this region of space should be absolutely stable. Astronomers have been collecting data for decades to compile a flawless picture of lunar geology. The moon's surface seemed to us like a perfect museum of the earliest history of our own solar system. We were certain that time there had practically stopped billions of years ago. Nothing foreshadowed the monumental scientific crisis we face today. The famous American missions of the last century brought back to Earth a vast amount of valuable lunar soil. The world's leading scientists spent many years meticulously studying these rocks in the most advanced laboratories. Their conclusions were unequivocal and left no room for even the slightest doubt. Analyses confirmed that all volcanic activity on the moon had completely ceased in very ancient times. This became the main postulate upon which all of our modern planetary science was based. The scientific community developed a very logical and mathematically elegant theory of our satellite's formation. We believed that after a massive cosmic collision, the moon rapidly formed from molten debris. Due to its relatively small size, it was bound to rapidly lose all its internal heat. By all laws of physics, its molten core simply had to quickly turn into solid rock. Any other model would have contradicted the basic rules of thermodynamics and common sense. Every new astronomy textbook reinforced this simple truth in the minds of millions of students. We looked at the craters and saw in them only scars from ancient and long-ended bombardments. We sincerely believed that we understood the mechanics of small planets better than anything else in the universe. This confidence gave us a pleasant sense of complete intellectual control over the nature surrounding us. We were proud that we had been able to unravel the mystery of our closest cosmic neighbor so precisely. But this beautiful and reassuring picture of the world turned out to be nothing more than a dangerous and blind illusion. We believed too soon in our ability to easily describe the most complex natural phenomena with simple formulas. Our science became a hostage to its own dogmas and stopped looking for alternative scenarios. We wouldn't even entertain the thought that some kind of energy might be hidden inside this lifeless rock. This arrogance played an incredibly cruel joke on us at the dawn of the new millennium. We built a vast scientific empire on a foundation that turned out to be made of sand. Every new hypothesis about other planets was based on our knowledge of the lunar surface. Mars, Venus, and the distant moons of the gas giants were evaluated by us through the lens of lunar history. If this basic starting point was incorrect, then all our subsequent calculations are flawed. This realization causes modern physicists to break out in a cold sweat of terror. For many years, we lived in a cozy, imaginary world where all the laws of the cosmos obeyed our strict logic. It seemed to us that the universe played by fair rules that were known to us in advance. The behavior of small celestial bodies was considered fully understood and completely devoid of any surprises. We simply turned a blind eye to minor inconsistencies in the old data, attributing them to instrument errors. It was very comfortable for us to believe in a completely lifeless and safe moon. However, the real cosmos is under no obligation to conform to our naive and limited human expectations. It exists according to its own laws, hidden from us, and often very cruel. We are merely trying to force our primitive earthly templates onto the incredibly complex fabric of the universe. And when these templates suddenly shatter, we find ourselves completely unprepared for the consequences. It is precisely this painful rupture of the template that is occurring right now in global science. With each passing year, our technologies become increasingly complex, precise, and incredibly sensitive. We build new orbital stations and send sophisticated robots to the surfaces of other planets. And these dispassionate machines are beginning to transmit information to us that is frightening in its categorical novelty. They are mercilessly shattering the very myths that we ourselves have painstakingly built up over decades. The illusion of a dead and comprehensible rock is crumbling under the relentless onslaught of fresh and precise facts. We thought we had completely closed the chapter titled Lunar Geology many years ago, but it turns out we couldn't even read the very first sentence of this complex book correctly. Our closest neighbor was hiding secrets in its dark depths that we never even suspected. And these secrets are poised to completely rewrite the entire history of our little corner of the vast galaxy. Everything changed the moment the Chinese Chang'e 5 spacecraft successfully returned to Earth. This ambitious space mission was supposed to be just another routine technological triumph for humanity. Scientists around the world expected to receive nothing more than a new batch of boring statistics to corroborate existing databases. None of the researchers even remotely suspected what a massive information bombshell this probe would bring back. What they discovered inside the sealed containers immediately sent shockwaves through the scientific community. When geologists first placed the new samples of lunar soil under ultra-powerful electron microscopes, they couldn't believe their eyes. The physical structure of the regolith they had brought back categorically refused to match the expected standard parameters. The instruments detected chemical compounds and isotopes that simply could not physically be present there. At first, all the experts thought that a ridiculous mistake had occurred or that the equipment had been contaminated on Earth. But repeated and very thorough rechecks stubbornly confirmed the incredible and frightening truth. These dark specks of extraterrestrial matter clearly indicated that our basic models were flawed. Instead of calm, ancient rock, we found clear evidence of relatively recent and extremely violent events. The data from this Chinese spacecraft dealt the first serious blow to the foundations of global astrophysics. What we saw completely upended the chronology of events on our natural satellite. This was not just a minor scientific paradox. It was a genuine systemic failure of our understanding of nature. Chinese scientists published the first official reports, and the scientific world plunged into a state of anxious confusion. Spectral analysis graphs showed anomalies that defied any logical earthly explanation. Rocks that were supposed to have spent billions of years in a cold vacuum looked alarmingly fresh. This directly contradicted all thermodynamics textbooks and the laws governing the cooling of small celestial bodies. It was as if someone or something had disrupted the natural flow of physical time right under our noses. But the situation began to get even worse when researchers moved on to a detailed chemical analysis. We had always considered the lunar composition to be rather primitive and lacking in complex or rare mineral forms. However, the Chang'e 5 probe delivered a substance that forced chemists to completely rewrite their reference books. Hidden within these tiny grains was information about processes of colossal power, completely unknown to us. Earth's satellite turned out to be far from a simple, lifeless chunk of homogeneous old rock. With each new test, the scale of the looming scientific problem became increasingly obvious and threatening. This was not a local, random anomaly in a single specific crater on the Moon's surface. The anomalies were clearly systemic in nature and pointed to global internal processes within the object itself. The data clearly showed that the Moon had been living its secret life for much longer than we had assumed. And this secret life was incredibly active, hot, and hidden from our Earth-based telescopes. We were accustomed to thinking that our instruments were flawless and our calculation methods absolutely precise and infallible. But a small handful of gray dust from another world easily shattered that proud confidence in a couple of months. Scientists realized that for decades, they had been looking at the sky through a very warped theoretical mirror. We saw only what we wanted to see, ignoring any facts that did not fit into our neat picture. Now this distorted picture has shattered into thousands of tiny, sharp shards. The discovery by Chinese astrophysicists silenced even the most stubborn and conservative skeptics in the academic community. The numbers were utterly merciless toward the old, comfortable, and long-accepted theories. We were confronted with a phenomenon that could not be swept under the rug or dismissed as an error. It was a new, harsh, and completely unpredictable reality, intruding into our safe world. The familiar cosmos suddenly revealed to us a face that was utterly alien and unfamiliar. This anomaly was merely the first warning bell, alerting us to the colossal changes in science that were to come. It clearly demonstrated just how fragmentary, vulnerable, and potentially erroneous our knowledge of the universe is. We have only just begun to cautiously scratch the surface of the immense mystery hidden in this cold vacuum. And what we found beneath that thin surface has robbed many researchers of their peaceful sleep. We must relearn how to understand the nature of things, setting aside all our past proud achievements. From that moment on, there was no turning back to the old, comfortable dogmas. The Chang'e mission opened a heavy door to a dark room filled with our own fears and ignorance. And the further we peer into this frightening darkness, the more incredible mysteries we find there. We can no longer be certain of a single celestial object around our small planet. At the very center of this terrifying scientific storm was a completely new and mysterious crystal. Scientists named it Chang'e, and this discovery completely shattered our understanding of lunar chemistry. It was not just a rare stone, but a substance whose existence contradicted all expected models. Its complex crystal lattice required very specific formation conditions. Such conditions were simply considered impossible on our natural satellite. The presence of this substance in the returned soil became a real nightmare for theorists and geologists. Researchers on the Chang'e mission could hardly believe their eyes as they studied the delivered samples. They peered through powerful microscopes at a tiny particle thinner than a human hair. This transparent, columnar crystal was hidden among completely ordinary basalt rocks. It seemed to mock the years of work by hundreds of outstanding planetary scientists around the world. Soon, the discovery was officially confirmed by international scientific commissions, and this reluctant acknowledgement became a point of no return for classical space geology. For such an unusual mineral to form at all, colossal temperatures and immense pressure are required. According to our old and reliable calculations, the lunar interior could never have provided such extreme conditions. The moon is too small to generate the energy needed to melt rock into such a specific state. And yet, the transparent crystal lay right under the microscopes on the tables of Earth's laboratories. It became irrefutable physical proof of our monstrous error in planetary physics calculations. No previous model had even considered such an unthinkable result. For many years, we were absolutely certain of our correctness, relying on the old data from the Apollo missions. Back then, it seemed that the chemical composition of the lunar surface had been studied inside and out. Scientists confidently mapped out the history of our moon's formation over millions of years. All geological processes seemed long since frozen, understandable, and crystal clear. But a single Chinese probe brought back to Earth a ruthless destroyer of these long-held illusions. The new mineral turned out to be the very missing piece of the puzzle that didn't fit into any familiar picture. At first, Many independent experts desperately tried to explain this discovery by an external cosmic factor. They hypothesized that this mineral was formed by the impact of a giant and extremely fast meteorite. A super-powerful explosion upon collision could indeed create short-lived conditions for the synthesis of such complex structures. The shock wave could hypothetically have compressed ordinary rock into something completely new. But a thorough isotopic analysis quickly and ruthlessly destroyed this convenient theory that offered a lifeline to everyone. The crystal formed slowly, deep within the moon's interior, under conditions of prolonged and stable internal heating. And it is precisely this indisputable fact that makes the situation truly alarming for all of modern astrophysics. This means that deep inside the moon, there was a powerful yet completely unknown source of colossal thermal energy. This hidden source operated for an incredibly long time, and with remarkable stability, transforming chemical elements into new forms. We know of no natural mechanisms capable of sustaining such heat within a small celestial body. Our science simply does not have the necessary equations to describe this eerie paradox. Nature has thrown down a challenge for which we were completely unprepared. Attempts to model this internal heat source repeatedly hit a dead end. Computer simulations showed that our moon should have cooled down incredibly quickly. There simply could not have been enough liquid magma left to form such complex phosphate minerals. Such compounds require a very delicate balance of chemical elements and a strict temperature regime. And this regime was somehow maintained in defiance of all known laws of thermodynamics. It was as if nature had hidden a giant nuclear reactor from us right beneath the dead lunar crust. The discovery of a new mineral is not just a triumph for mineralogy. It is a death knell for all our old textbooks. We thought we had fully explored the entire periodic table within the confines of our own solar system. But this tiny, transparent piece of rock has proven that the universe is capable of impossible feats. It hides entire chemical processes from us right in the orbit of our own blue planet. It conceals incredible transformations of matter in places we thought we had long since studied. And we cannot fathom what other invisible surprises lie hidden beneath the thick layer of lunar dust. Every day of studying this mineral brings physicists more new questions than long-awaited answers. Scientists are trying to understand the exact mechanism of phosphorus's interaction with other elements under such extreme pressure. It turned out that the crystal's structure contains a unique and highly unusual combination of rare elements. Such a configuration of atoms is practically unheard of under normal terrestrial conditions. This is forcing chemists to completely rewrite the rules governing mineral formation in outer space. Old and convenient dogmas are literally crumbling to dust under the weight of new, irrefutable facts. Physicists around the world are frantically trying to find a logical explanation for this incredible energy phenomenon. Some suggest the influence of exotic particles or dense clumps of invisible dark matter in the core. Others are desperately constructing wild theories about unknown laws of gravity and spatial anomalies. Even the most fantastical versions are emerging about wandering energy sources inside small planets. But all these complex hypotheses only underscore our absolute helplessness in the face of the facts. We see the result of a massive mechanism at work, but we have absolutely no idea how it works. This impossible mineral has become a kind of symbol of our total cosmic ignorance and scientific blindness. It glitters mockingly under the laboratory light, reminding us of the fragility of human knowledge and theories. We have spent billions of dollars building grandiose orbital observatories and super-powerful ground-based telescopes. We have tried to peer to the very edge of the universe in search of answers to the universe's fundamental questions. But we have failed to see the greatest mystery of all, hanging right above our heads. Our pride as explorers has been cruelly trampled by this tiny, cold, alien crystal. If such extreme and impossible chemical reactions could be taking place inside the moon, what is happening on other planets? We always considered Mars and Venus to be straightforward objects with predictable and rather boring geology. But now, scientists realize with undisguised horror the scale of their recent fundamental error. The interiors of neighboring planets may also conceal processes of unprecedented power and complexity. Our basic understanding of neighboring worlds has come under a massive and entirely justified threat. We risk finding ourselves in a completely unfamiliar and very dangerous star system. Discoveries like these are forcing space agencies around the world to urgently revise their plans for future expeditions. The top priority is no longer simply studying the surface, but deep drilling and searching for thermal anomalies. We urgently need entirely new instruments to scan the subsurface of neighboring planets and asteroids. What seemed like a lifeless rock just yesterday may harbor a seething chemical life. It is as if we are rediscovering our nearest and, seemingly, familiar region of space. And every new step in this direction promises to be incredibly difficult and unpredictable. The discovery of this mineral has forced us to rethink the very concept of the impossible in the context of astronomical research. Nature has clearly shown us that its possibilities are infinitely broader than our narrow mathematical models and formulas. It is capable of creating conditions that our limited human mind categorically refuses to accept. And we will have to come to terms with this humbling fact if we want to move forward in the study of space. We need to learn to think in terms that go beyond the boundaries of familiar Earth-based physics. Only then will we be able to come closer to understanding the true and harsh laws of the universe. This crystal is not just another entry in the long reference books on space geology. It is a deeply unsettling message from a reality that has turned out to be far more complex and bleak than we expected. The new mineral has mercilessly shattered the illusion of our complete control over scientific knowledge. We have opened Pandora's box, filled with mysteries that could tear modern science to its very foundations. And we no longer have any way to close it back up and pretend that nothing happened. But the appearance of the impossible mineral turned out to be only a small part of the enormous problem we faced. The results of determining the exact age of the volcanic rocks brought back caused a real shock and awe. When the laboratories released the final figures from radiometric dating, the world of astronomy literally froze in horror. The equipment showed that the traces of massive lunar volcanism found were only about 2 billion years old. For the vast cosmos, that is practically yesterday, and it completely shatters all of our physics. Researchers rechecked this data dozens of times using a wide variety of independent equipment. They employed the most advanced methods of uranium and lead analysis to ensure maximum measurement accuracy. Each new, meticulous verification stubbornly yielded the same result, one that defied scientific understanding. Engineers reduced the margin of error in these highly complex measurements to an absolute minimum. Scientists held out hope until the very end that they might find an error in the calibration of the instruments, or attribute the results to the influence of Earth's atmosphere. But the facts remained unyielding and ruthlessly harsh toward established scientific dogmas. According to all recognized and established scientific canons, the moon should have cooled down more than 3 billion years ago. Its size categorically prevented it from retaining its initial heat for so long in the cold vacuum. Any magmatic activity should have ceased forever at the very earliest stage of the solar system's evolution. And yet, before us lay fresh evidence of raging oceans of lava in the relatively recent past. This is not merely a minor error in calculations. It is the complete dismantling of our understanding of time in space. The entire chronological foundation of planetary science turned out to be erroneous from start to finish. We had always considered the dark lunar seas to be the oldest scars from colossal meteorite impacts. It was assumed that liquid lava filled these giant craters at the very beginning of our system's formation. After this violent period, eternal silence and absolute geological calm set in. But now, we clearly understand that the surface was in turmoil and underwent radical changes much later. At that very time, our home planet was already actively preparing for the emergence of a complex biosphere, and this frightening proximity to the active and hot cosmos forces us to take a fresh look at Earth's safety. Imagine that you are performing an autopsy on an ancient Egyptian mummy in a modern, sterile morgue. And suddenly, to your horror, you discover that its heartbeat for the last time just a couple of years ago. It was precisely this spine-chilling sensation that leading planetary scientists experienced when reading the age graphs of the new samples. The dead world, which we considered an ancient and immovable monument, turned out to be frighteningly alive and very active. It lived its turbulent geological life at a time when complex life forms were already developing on Earth. This discovery turns our perception of dead matter upside down. This new chronology completely shatters the basic principles of thermodynamics upon which modern planetary physics is based. If the moon remained molten inside for so long, it must have been heated by some unknown and incredibly powerful source. The normal decay of radioactive elements in the core could not have provided even a tenth of the necessary energy. The Earth's tidal forces are also too weak to sustain such extensive and prolonged volcanism. None of the heat-generating mechanisms known to science can explain this prolonged hot phenomenon. We have hit a completely impenetrable wall of our total ignorance of the basic laws of nature. Previously, many astrophysicists had hypothesized the presence of special heat-generating elements in the deep layers of the lunar mantle. They had high hopes of detecting abnormally high concentrations of potassium, uranium, or thorium in the new samples. These radioactive elements might have at least provided some logical explanation for the localized and late-stage rock melting, but chemical analysis of the soil samples revealed a completely ordinary composition, devoid of such convenient anomalies. The last remaining theory collapsed, leaving researchers face to face with a completely unsolvable mystery. The cause of late lunar volcanism remains an absolute and deeply unsettling mystery. The very fact that we were off by a whole billion years in our age estimate is deeply alarming. A billion years is an invisible abyss of time into which all our flawless scientific models have fallen. We built our theories on erroneous data, sincerely believing them to be absolute and unshakable truth. Every new article on astronomy for years has relied on this completely false historical foundation. Our cosmic chronology turned out to be nothing more than a beautiful fairy tale invented for our own reassurance. And now this old, comforting fairy tale has been replaced by a harsh and very cold realism. Such a massive loss of temporal reference points renders many previous geological studies meaningless. We can no longer date any major lunar crater with absolute certainty. The entire chronological scale of meteorite bombardments of the solar system now requires a complete and painful reevaluation. Scientists are forced to start their extremely complex work practically from scratch. Decades of painstaking work by thousands of specialists have suddenly been thrown into serious doubt. This global crisis of confidence in our own knowledge has become the most severe test for the scientific community. This discovery forces us to view the ages of virtually all objects in the solar system with great suspicion. If we were so gravely and foolishly mistaken about the moon, which is literally right before our eyes, how monstrous might our errors be in assessing the distant icy moons of Jupiter or Saturn? Perhaps those worlds we consider dead ice bodies are hiding hot processes beneath their crusts right now. We have grown accustomed to judging the age of distant objects by indirect and, as it turns out, highly unreliable signs. Our entire neat historical timeline of the universe has been completely compromised by a single Chinese probe. Such a colossal shift in chronology means that we have absolutely no understanding of planetary life cycles. We thought that planets are born, cool down quickly, and then hang forever as dead weight in the void. But data from the Chang'e spacecraft show that dead worlds can suddenly and very aggressively wake up from within. Something caused the moon's interior to heat up again, to enormous temperatures after billions of years of dormancy. We are frantically searching for the cause of this sudden and powerful cosmic resurrection. And this uncertainty terrifies astronomers far more than any black holes or supernova explosions. Some researchers have already begun frantically searching for traces of such sudden awakenings on other celestial bodies. They are closely and anxiously studying recent images of Martian volcanoes in search of recent lava flows. Alarming working hypotheses are emerging about hidden geological activity, even on small, icy asteroids. Our solar system has turned out to be a far more turbulent and unpredictable place than previously thought. Periods of long calm here can suddenly give way to eras of catastrophic thermal changes. And these cycles are completely beyond the reach of our current mathematical and physical forecasting. Perhaps this hidden heating mechanism operates cyclically throughout every corner of our vast galaxy. And if it was able to reawaken the dead moon, what would prevent it from triggering similar cataclysms on Earth? Our confidence in the stability of the Earth's core is based on the very same mathematical models that have just failed spectacularly. We are sitting on a massive powder keg and have absolutely no idea what the timer set on its detonator is. Our planet may be hiding exactly the same dormant mechanisms of sudden heating within itself. This knowledge instills genuine existential terror in the minds of even the most pragmatic researchers. We are faced with the fact that the history of our solar system is far more dynamic and dangerous than we had assumed. It is neither linear nor predictable. It is full of sudden and inexplicable energy surges of unprecedented power. Global events of cosmic scale may occur cyclically, remaining completely invisible to our feeble instruments. We can no longer trust our clocks when estimating the age of ancient geological events. Our compass of time is hopelessly broken as a result of this incredible lunar discovery. And we have finally lost our way in the tangled chronology of our own cosmic home. Every new attempt to explain this 2 billion-year delay in cooling only gives rise to new, unsolvable paradoxes. We try to stretch old Earth physics to fit new, daunting facts, but it constantly bursts at the seams. These outdated rules simply cannot withstand the immense pressure of the new objective reality. We are forced to admit, in all honesty, that we have been completely defeated by the immense complexity of the processes unfolding right before our eyes. These mysterious phenomena pose a direct challenge to the entire intellectual capacity of humanity. And this is only the beginning of the nightmare that awaits us as we continue to explore this mystery. The situation began to unfold according to the bleakest scenario when the Chang'e 6 probe set off for the far side of the moon. This mission was designed to explore that hidden region that never faces our planet. We hoped to find answers there to the questions that had piled up and to somehow stabilize our science, which was falling apart at the seams. But instead of reassuring answers, the probe sent back data that turned a local anomaly into a global planetary catastrophe. The dark side turned out to be a completely different world, alien and utterly incomprehensible to us. The data from the far side categorically and completely contradicts everything we have seen on the near side. The regolith there has a different chemical composition, a different density, and follows a completely different geological history. This is not merely a difference in landscapes, it is a global asymmetry that has no right to exist according to the laws of physics. A planet formed from the same dust cloud ought to be relatively homogeneous in structure. But the Moon looks as if it were roughly cobbled together from two completely different celestial bodies. This colossal difference transforms the problem from a local mystery into a fundamental flaw in all of our celestial mechanics. We can no longer attribute these oddities to the random composition of a single specific crater or region. We clearly see a large-scale systemic paradox that encompasses an entire half of our natural satellite. Expectations of a uniform distribution of minerals and temperature signatures have completely and irrevocably failed. The dark side of the Moon lived by its own laws, which are completely unknown to us. If the near side shows evidence of impossible recent volcanism, the far side hides even more ancient anomalies. The thickness of the crust there is completely different, indicating incomprehensible processes of gravitational and thermal distribution. We are faced with the fact that our physical model of planetary formation simply does not work on this scale. We are trying to explain these differences, but our classical theories shatter against the harsh reality of alien regolith. Once again, we find ourselves blind in our attempts to understand the vast mechanism above our heads. The discovery of this global asymmetry raises our level of scientific alarm to a fundamentally new height. If such a fundamental difference is possible on our tiny satellite, then our knowledge of other worlds is zero. We have judged massive exoplanets solely by the faint light passing through their atmospheres. But if we cannot even predict the composition of the far side of the Moon, all our knowledge of space is illusory. We think we understand the universe, but we do not even understand our own front porch. This incompatibility between the two lunar hemispheres is all the more frightening because we see no logical reason for it. Earth could not have exerted such a colossal shielding effect as to create such a huge difference in composition. This means that some other, external, and incredibly powerful factor acted upon the Moon even during its early formation. A factor that our modern science is not even capable of imagining or modeling on its supercomputers. We have encountered the specter of an unknown force that has forever changed the face of our neighbor. The more data the Chang'e 6 probe sends back, the less sense our old textbooks make. Every gram of soil from the dark side carries isotopes that complicate the situation to the extreme. Astrophysicists are trying to create a unified theory that brings both sides together. But the math simply refuses to add up. The equations yield infinities or negative masses, revealing a complete dead end for our analytical methods. We are stuck in an intellectual nightmare from which no way out is yet in sight. The dark side of the Moon has always been a symbol of the unknown in our popular Earth-based culture and art. But now, it has become a very real and tangible scientific curse for the world's leading laboratories. It mockingly demonstrates to us the limitations of our minds and the weakness of our best measuring instruments. We have peeked behind the curtain and seen mechanisms whose operating principles defy comprehension. This is far more frightening than the mere absence of answers. We have realized that the Moon is not a single lifeless rock, but an extremely complex and contradictory system. It is full of internal conflicts between its visible and hidden parts, between its ancient crust and its unexpectedly hot core. And this complexity categorically does not fit into the simple world to which we have grown so accustomed. We will have to completely tear down the edifice of modern planetary science and start rebuilding it from the very first brick. And no one can guarantee that we won't make another fatal, fundamental mistake. What was hidden in the darkness on the other side turned out to be worse than our most pessimistic expectations. This is not just a dead zone. It is a zone where the laws of terrestrial physics as we know them cease to apply. And we are only beginning to grasp the full scale of this catastrophic error in our understanding of reality. It was precisely this terrifying realization of our own ignorance that triggered a new, unprecedented space race. The US, China, and other great powers suddenly and very aggressively resumed their lunar programs. The news feeds us beautiful fairy tales about national pride, flags on the surface, and future colonist bases. We're told about valuable resources, helium-3 mining, and scientific achievements for the benefit of all humanity. But the real reason for this mad rush lies much deeper and sounds far darker. The governments of leading nations have realized with horror that the basic physical model of near space is broken. They have come to understand that the moon is the key to understanding entirely new, hidden sources of colossal energy. That something which caused the moon's dead core to melt the rock 2 billion years ago is of incredible value. This is not merely a matter of scientific interest. It is a question of global technological survival and dominance on Earth. And no one wants to be left behind in the distribution of this new, frightening, and incomprehensible physical knowledge. This is no longer calm academic science. It is a desperate race to understand an unknown cosmic force. Intelligence agencies from every country are carefully analyzing every bit of data received from the Chang'e missions. In secret laboratories, the planet's best minds are hastily gathering to try to be the first to unravel the changeosite Y paradox. At stake are technologies capable of completely altering the energy balance of our own civilization. This rush is driven not by the ambitions of politicians, but by a deep, primal fear of falling behind a terrifying reality. When superpowers invest trillions of dollars in accelerated flights to the moon, it is always a sign of panic. They understand that whoever is the first to unravel the mystery of anomalous lunar volcanism will gain an incredible advantage. The ability to control processes of such power will render traditional nuclear weapons nothing more than childish and useless toys. That is why mission schedules are being pushed forward, and rockets are being built in a tremendous rush, disregarding any financial costs. We are witnessing not the triumph of humanity, but its panicked flight toward the unknown. Official rhetoric carefully hides this anxiety behind glossy presentations of future lunar orbital stations. But behind the scenes at space agencies, an atmosphere of oppressive confusion and constant high tension reigns. Scientists with access to the probe's full databases look more frightened than joyfully inspired. They understand that they are sending people to a place where the laws of thermodynamics have behaved in a completely unpredictable manner, and they cannot possibly guarantee the safety of future missions to this object that has risen from the dead. This geopolitical flurry clearly shows that the problem has gone far beyond narrow academic circles. What is happening on the moon directly affects our future on Earth, and the authorities understand this perfectly well. They are not rushing to stake out territory. They are rushing to be the first to understand the new rules of the physics of the universe. Whoever is the last to understand them risks being left on the sidelines of technological and evolutionary history forever. And this fear is driving massive state apparatuses to operate at the very limits of their physical capabilities. Every new launch of a spacecraft to a satellite is accompanied by ever-increasing secrecy and opacity. Data is carefully filtered before publication in open sources, so as not to cause premature panic in society. We see only the tip of this gigantic iceberg, concealing the true motives of governments beneath it. This new kind of arms race is unfolding not for the sake of conquering Earth, but for the sake of survival in the face of space. We are trying to arm ourselves with knowledge that we are not yet even capable of fully comprehending. Politicians realize that if we were wrong about the basic model of the moon, we are defenseless against threats from space. It is impossible to protect the planet relying on physics that doesn't even work at a distance of 300,000 kilometers. This race is an attempt to urgently patch a giant hole in our global planetary security system. We are desperately trying to understand how the world works before our ignorance leads us to disaster. And with each passing day, the stakes in this dangerous game only continue to rise rapidly and inexorably. The US and China are not merely competing for the prestigious and proud status of the world's leading space power. They are engaged in a desperate race against time, trying to unravel a mystery older than our civilization itself. And in this struggle, the winner may gain knowledge that will forever change the face of the entire human race. But we may all end up the losers if this mystery proves too dangerous for us to comprehend. If our calculations were wrong in the most obvious place, the consequences would be catastrophic for all of science. For decades, we have built a global physical picture of the world based on these fundamental lunar constants. Every theory of the formation of the terrestrial planets has used the history of our moon as an unshakable benchmark for comparison. We used to describe Venus, Mars, and even Mercury itself using equations that have now been shattered to pieces. This entire well-ordered system of knowledge collapsed overnight because of new soil samples. Now, our entire grand catalog of the solar system isn't even worth the paper it's printed on. Previously, astrophysicists were absolutely certain of the universality of their thermal models for small celestial bodies. It was believed that an object's mass and volume strictly dictated the rate at which it lost its internal heat. These ironclad rules applied to absolutely all rocky worlds in our galaxy, without exception. No one even entertained the thought of possible serious deviations from this mathematical norm. For years, scientists defended their dissertations and received prestigious awards for these fundamental calculations. And today, these awards seem merely symbols of our profound collective delusion. This is not just a minor and annoying correction in boring university textbooks for future physicists. It means that we literally know nothing about the history of our neighbors in our own planetary system. For a long time, we considered Mars a dead world whose iron core solidified many billions of years ago. This process supposedly stripped the red planet of its magnetic field and dense atmosphere forever. But if the tiny moon was able to retain enough heat for large-scale volcanism quite recently, then Mars can too. This means that processes of incredible hidden power may be taking place right now beneath the rusty surface of the red planet. Such prospects force us to completely rethink all past observations of the surface of the Martian wastelands. Those strange furrows and depressions in the ground may not have been formed by ancient water flows at all. It is quite possible that these are traces of recent thermal activity, hidden deep beneath the thick layer of sand. We simply weren't looking in the right places or paying attention to the right things when analyzing satellite images. Our view was clouded by old theories that categorically ruled out the possibility of a hot Martian interior. Now, however, this strict scientific prohibition has been lifted in the most radical and unexpected way. Our supposed certainty has turned into a vast and very dangerous blind spot on the scale of an entire galaxy. We look joyfully at data on distant exoplanets, speculating about their potential habitability and temperature. Astronomers confidently declare Goldilocks zones, where ideal conditions for liquid water and life supposedly exist. But all these beautiful statements are based on the very same thermodynamics that broke down on the lunar regolith. Our mathematical tools turned out to be fundamentally flawed. If we do not understand heat distribution right here, then our speculations about other stars are laughable. We send radio signals into the void in the hope of finding fellow sentient beings on suitable planets. Yet we select search targets based on our flawed notions of a world's habitability. Perhaps we are ignoring truly habitable systems simply because they do not fit the old formulas. Our telescopes are looking in the wrong sectors of the starry sky, blinded by human hubris. We will have to completely rewrite the algorithms for searching for extraterrestrial life in light of this new, alarming data. This will set astrobiology back several decades in its development. This gigantic crack in our knowledge casts immense doubt on the competence of all of humanity. We imagined ourselves to be great conquerors of space, capable of calculating the future of the universe millions of years ahead. But the universe responded with a cold and cruel slap in the face, revealing the true level of our pitiful development. We are like children who have learned to count to 10 and decided they can solve quantum mechanics equations. Our pride has been punished by a reality that refuses to conform to our primitive expectations. Nature has once again proven its undeniable superiority over the human mind. The situation is exacerbated by the fact that we do not know exactly where the root of our fundamental error lies. We cannot simply add a new coefficient to the old equations and happily continue our research. The discovery of new minerals and late volcanism requires a re-examination of the most basic principles of the interaction between matter and energy. This requires the creation of an entirely new physics of the planets, for which we do not yet even have the initial mathematical framework. We find ourselves in the position of students whose notes have been erased from the blackboard right before the most important exam. And we have absolutely no time for a long warm-up or a gradual realization of the problem. Scientific institutions around the world are now frantically convening emergency conferences and symposia. The planet's leading minds are trying to find at least some logic in the data from the lunar samples. Dozens of conflicting theories are emerging, each attempting to salvage what remains of the old physics. But so far, none of them has been able to fully describe the incredible phenomenon we have encountered. The academic community has plunged into a state of chaos and mutual accusations of incompetence. Old authorities are crumbling, giving way to complete and absolute uncertainty. Scientists are horrified to realize that every mission sent to other planets was based on false premises. We designed ultra-complex sensors for Mars rovers to search for things that might not even be there. We spent enormous resources studying parameters that may turn out to be completely irrelevant in the new physical model. Our entire strategy for exploring near space turned out to be built on a deeply flawed and shaky theoretical foundation. And now that foundation has begun to rapidly crumble under the weight of new, irrefutable evidence from the moon. Billions of dollars invested in space programs are at risk of becoming completely worthless. It will take decades of hard work to reassemble this shattered mosaic of knowledge. We will have to send new probes not only to the moon, but also to other objects in the solar system. And this time, we must be prepared for the most incredible and shocking discoveries. Old physics textbooks will soon become nothing more than historical relics of the development of science. We will have to rewrite them, based on facts that just yesterday seemed like wild fantasy. And this is only a small part of the price humanity will have to pay for its past arrogance. This scientific crisis forces us to doubt even the simplest and most obvious optical observations. If we look at a distant star and see its spectrum, can we be sure our interpretation is correct? If minerals can form under impossible conditions right here in our orbit, then the laws of optics may also be deceiving us. Light traveling through vast cosmic space may carry entirely different information that we simply cannot read. We find ourselves trapped in a cage of our own ignorance, unable to correctly interpret signals from the outside. We must relearn how to see and understand the infinite universe around us. The rift in our knowledge is rapidly widening, engulfing more and more adjacent fields of human science. Geology, astrophysics, chemistry, and even quantum mechanics have encountered contradictions spawned by a single cosmic discovery. These disciplines have always supported one another, forming a single monolithic edifice of human wisdom. Now, however, this monolith is covered with deep cracks and threatens to crumble into pieces at any moment. We are witnessing a true systemic collapse of our attempts to rationally describe this vast and cold world around us. We are forced to admit defeat in the face of a reality that has proven infinitely more complex than our formulas. But the most terrifying conclusion from this entire tangled lunar mystery concerns you and me directly. If we were so monstrously and foolishly wrong about the physical models of the celestial body closest to us, then we could make a critical mistake at any moment in our models of our own home planet, Earth. All our much-vaunted confidence in the future is built on the assumption that Earth's geology is stable and understandable. But the Moon has just proven to us that celestial bodies are capable of delivering very unpleasant, deadly surprises. And these surprises may be lurking right beneath our feet, biding their time. We have grown accustomed to viewing the Earth's crust as an absolutely reliable and eternal shield, protecting us from the fire within. All of modern human civilization, from skyscrapers to underground tunnels, is built upon this illusory sense of security. Geologists assured us that all major cataclysms were confined to the planet's distant, primordial past. Current processes were considered slow, predictable, and completely harmless to the survival of the human species. However, the lunar precedent clearly demonstrates that phases of deep dormancy can be abruptly replaced by explosive activity. And we have absolutely no idea which phase of this cycle our Earth is currently in. We constantly try to predict climate change, the movement of tectonic plates, and the activity of supervolcanoes. To do this, seismologists use complex simulations based on the very same fundamental laws of planetary heat exchange. We naively believe that the Earth's core will cool according to a strictly defined and safe schedule for us. But what if the same unknown factor that awakened the Moon's interior could have an effect here as well? Our planet could suddenly break all the rules of the game, and we would be completely unprepared for the global consequences. Old seismic models will not be able to warn us of a completely new type of threat. It is quite possible that deep within the Earth's mantle, there are pockets of dormant energy unknown to us. They could be activated by the same mysterious cosmic forces that affected the Moon. If such a process were to begin, it would not resemble a typical local earthquake or volcanic eruption. It would be a massive thermal anomaly capable of melting continental plates at an incredible speed. Scientists simply do not have the algorithms to recognize the early signs of such a specific heating process. We would be blind and helpless in the face of an awakening subterranean monster. Imagine that the Earth's internal heat suddenly and unpredictably increases, defying all known laws of physics. This will lead to massive melting of the mantle, catastrophic eruptions, and the complete destruction of our entire familiar biosphere. The oceans could begin to boil, and millions of tons of toxic volcanic gases would be released into the atmosphere. If the Moon was able to retain heat for powerful volcanic activity, in defiance of thermodynamics, the Earth could do the same. And we wouldn't even be able to detect this process in advance, because our instruments are calibrated to search for other anomalies. Our safety turned out to be an illusion based on blind faith in the infallibility of old mathematical formulas. Governments around the world spend enormous sums on early warning systems for tsunamis and earthquakes. These sensor networks span the entire globe, constantly collecting terabytes of seismic data. But this entire massive infrastructure could turn out to be a completely useless toy under the new conditions. The sensors simply aren't calibrated for the changes caused by a new type of internal planetary heating. They will show a green safety zone right up until the moment the Earth splits open. Our most advanced safety technologies have turned into a useless pile of metal. This gnawing existential fear now haunts many leading geophysicists and planetary scientists around the world. They clearly understand that our civilization lives on a thin and fragile crust above a raging ocean of unknown magma. We build massive megacities and nuclear power plants, confident in the immutability of the Earth's crust and the stability of the laws of nature. But data from the Chinese Chang'e probe clearly show that this stability could be disrupted at any unpredictable moment. We have absolutely no control over the situation and do not even understand what forces actually govern our world. And this truth is too frightening to be openly discussed on the evening news. Many researchers are now calling for an urgent reallocation of part of space budgets toward an in-depth study of Earth. We need to shed new light on our own planet, discarding all previous comforting dogmas. We must develop entirely new principles for scanning the mantle and core, taking into account possible temperature anomalies. This is a task of colossal complexity, requiring the combined efforts of all technologically advanced nations. We may have very little time left before the hidden mechanism fails on our planet. And every delay in this work multiplies the risks for all of humanity. This threat is not some distant abstraction or the plot of a cheap disaster sci-fi movie. It is a direct, harsh, and logical conclusion, drawn from the collapse of classical physics that we are currently witnessing in science. We have grown accustomed to thinking that the main threats to humanity come from ourselves or from random large asteroids. But now we have realized that the very planet beneath our feet can act contrary to all our calculations. We have become hostages to a massive mechanism whose operating principle has just been completely and irreparably compromised. And this mechanism has no emergency shutdown button or remote control. The realization of our vulnerability to Earth's internal forces must radically change our entire strategy for the survival of the species. Projects to colonize other planets now seem not merely a bold dream, but a vital necessity. If our home planet harbors an unpredictable geological time bomb, we need backup plans. However, the paradox is that neighboring planets have also turned out to be incomprehensible and potentially dangerous. We are caught in a vice between the threat from the Earth's depths and the absolute unknown of cold space. Humanity will have to make an incredible technological leap to escape this deadly trap. Our lack of understanding of the true nature of things makes us completely vulnerable to any global cataclysms. We cannot effectively defend ourselves against a threat whose nature we are not even capable of adequately describing with mathematical equations. If a process similar to the anomalous lunar heating were to begin tomorrow, all our advanced technologies would be utterly useless. All that will remain for us is to passively watch as the world we arrogantly considered rightfully ours crumbles. This grim scenario terrifies experts far more than any conspiracy theories about invasions from outside. We have become the primary victims of our own intellectual blindness and deep scientific conservatism. Every time we look at this serene nocturnal companion, we must remember its hidden threat. The moon is not merely a beautiful and romantic symbol in the night sky above our heads. It is a very stern and harsh warning to all of humanity, which is far too presumptuous and self-assured. It silently tells us that space categorically does not forgive blind faith in one's own dogmas. It constantly reminds us that our planet is merely a fragile grain of sand in a vast and very dangerous ocean. And we have absolutely no idea of the schedule of those storms that could erupt at any second in this silent ocean. The whole point of this grand scientific paradox boils down to the search for a single, yet critically important, answer. What exactly could have heated the depths of dead rock 2 billion years ago and created new minerals there? We simply do not have a single suitable physical theory that could explain this colossal surge of heat. Conventional science attempts to sift through known possibilities, but each one inevitably reaches a dead end. We find ourselves face to face with a phenomenon that requires the involvement of entirely new forces of nature. Perhaps we are dealing with some exotic manifestation of an unknown gravitational resonance in the solar system. But even the most daring mathematical models of such a resonance cannot produce the required amount of joules of energy. The tides generated by Earth are physically incapable of melting vast volumes of ancient lunar rock. We can juggle the old formulas for as long as we like, but they always show a massive energy deficit. This heat balance does not add up, as if the equation is missing its most important and massive variable. In desperation, some scientists are beginning to hypothesize the influence of gigantic clusters of invisible dark matter in the core. This hypothetical substance could undergo an annihilation reaction, releasing a colossal amount of the missing heat. But dark matter is merely a theoretical crutch we use to explain any astronomical mysteries. We have no real evidence of its existence, let alone the mechanisms of its interaction with ordinary lunar regolith. This is merely an attempt to replace one unknown mystery with another, an even more nebulous and difficult to understand concept. If we set aside all our wild and unsubstantiated theories, what remains is the most terrifying and simplest fact of reality. A grand mechanism of energy distribution operates in our solar system, about which we know nothing. This hidden and powerful mechanism is capable of selectively influencing entire planetary bodies, violating the laws of thermodynamics. And it was active quite recently by the standards of vast cosmic evolution. The realization that such a colossal force exists right under our noses triggers a genuine primal panic. We do not know whether this universal force is intelligent or if it is simply a blind law of nature that we have yet to discover. But we see the results of its destructive and creative work with our own eyes through electron microscopes. It is capable of creating changeosite, crystals, under conditions where any chemistry should have been long and surely dead. It is capable of rewriting the geological history of entire worlds as easily as if it were a game with children's building blocks. And we, with all our earthly ambitions, look utterly pathetic in the face of such unfathomable power. This discovery makes us feel like savages who have accidentally stumbled upon an abandoned nuclear reactor in the forest. We see the heat and light. We see the results of its operation, but we cannot grasp even the basic principles of its design. Any attempt on our part to interfere or logically explain this process seems naive and very dangerous. We simply haven't reached the level of understanding required to grasp the processes that routinely occur in the vast cosmos surrounding us. And this fundamental limitation of the human mind becomes our greatest curse in astronomy. The more data we receive, the clearer it becomes that this unknown source of energy has not disappeared anywhere. If it could have been active a couple of billion years ago, it is quite capable of manifesting itself tomorrow morning. We are completely at the mercy of factors that we cannot even detect with our best instruments. Our civilization exists only thanks to a temporary and random lull in the workings of this grand cosmic mechanism. Now, astrophysicists face the most difficult and humiliating task in the entire history of our science. We need to take all those massive volumes on the history of the solar system and throw them in the trash. We are forced to rewrite the script of our world's formation based on frightening and highly inconvenient new facts. Every single stage of planetary evolution must undergo the most brutal and uncompromising revision in light of these discoveries. We are returning to the very first grade of cosmic science class in disgrace and with immense fear. All our beautiful animations of Earth's birth from a gas dust cloud turned out to be nothing more than naive artistic fantasies. The real processes were far more complex contradictory, and full of enormous energetic paradoxes. We must find a place in this new narrative for impossible minerals and the spontaneous heating of dead planets. We will have to create a physics that allows for the existence of such anomalies without completely violating the basic logic of the universe. And this task seems utterly impossible given our current level of technological and mathematical development. We can no longer consider the solar system a closed, comprehensible, and completely stable safe box. It is an open, dynamic, and unpredictable environment, subject to the influence of colossal hidden forces and factors. What we considered to be the unshakable laws of nature turned out to be merely the specific and temporary rules of a local sandbox. And these rules can change beyond recognition at any moment due to causes completely unknown to us. We have lost our footing and are now floundering in a boundless ocean of frightening scientific hypotheses and assumptions. This severe crisis completely shatters our confidence in our own superiority as a rational human species. We proudly believed that we were capable of conquering space through the power of our mathematics and impeccable, rigorous logic. But the universe has mockingly shown us that our logic is merely an illusion of control over chaos. We are merely blind passengers on this enormous spaceship hurtling in an unknown direction. And we have absolutely no idea how the engine of this enormous and insanely complex ship works. As we rewrite history, we must acknowledge that many dead worlds may not be so dead after all. Perhaps asteroids and icy comets also harbor traces of this impossible and terrifying energetic activity. Every new study of any object in space will now be accompanied by a paranoid expectation of a new catch. Science has lost its former optimism and the joy of discovery, replacing them with a constant, oppressive anticipation of the worst-case scenario. Space has ceased to be a place for bold, romantic dreams and has definitively become a source of our existential fears. We have realized that our own solar system is an incredibly complex mechanism with a multitude of dangerous, hidden, and unknown variables. And the fact that we have managed to survive to this day may be nothing more than the result of an incredible statistical fluke. We exist not because of our understanding of the universe, but solely in spite of our absolute ignorance. This bitter truth forces us to view our fragile achievements and bold plans for the future in a completely different light. We have reached the most dangerous and unpredictable frontier of our knowledge of the infinite reality that surrounds us. All of our latest astrophysical instruments have led us to incredibly frightening and deeply depressing conclusions about the cosmos. Scientists are desperately trying to find at least some logic in this global violation of the basic laws of planetary thermodynamics. Whether it is the influence of hidden dark matter, gravitational anomalies, or cycles of cosmic heating unknown to us. The essence of what is happening remains absolutely unchanged and alarming for all of our fragile and incredibly vulnerable humanity. We are incredibly small and utterly powerless in the face of this ominous and incomprehensible cosmic activity. All that remains for us is to stand silently and resignedly before this utterly insurmountable barrier of our own ignorance. For many years, popular science promised us an exceptionally bright, understandable, and joyful future among the distant stars. Science fiction writers described beautiful worlds where human reason had triumphed, and we had complete control over the laws of the nature surrounding us. We were told very convincingly that one day we would surely unravel all the great mysteries of this universe, without exception. But harsh reality has delivered an extremely cruel, cold, and sobering lesson right at our doorstep. The vast cosmos has absolutely no desire to submit to our primitive formulas and narrow mathematical expectations. Rather, it prefers that we remain forever in the dark, regarding its true, terrifying, and colossal scale. These impossible discoveries make it clear that there are very strict rules of survival that we do not yet know at all, and we are forced to silently submit to this invisible dictate of a physical reality that far surpasses us and is terrifying. Every new mission to the moon now brings scientists far more primal fear than sincere, joyful hope. We stare intently at the monitors, terrified of seeing yet another refutation of our basic knowledge. Because any new data we receive inevitably and mercilessly shatters our familiar, calm, and comfortable illusory world. If we find even more anomalies, we will have to immediately prepare for the worst-case scenario in our evolutionary history. This oppressive and heavy paranoia is gradually and inevitably seeping into all modern global space programs. It is physically impossible to simply snap our fingers and turn off our basic human curiosity forever. We will inevitably continue to launch rockets into this ominous void every long, clear night. Astronomers will stubbornly seek the slightest answers within this impenetrable barrier of new, unsolvable cosmic paradoxes. Our young species is evolutionarily and biologically programmed for a ceaseless search for the truth about the structure of this gigantic universe. We are driven forward by a thirst for knowledge, no matter how terrifying and uncomfortable this bitter truth may ultimately prove to be. We will persistently continue our deep investigations to the limits of all our modern technical and intellectual capabilities. Even if this bitter final truth threatens us with the complete and inevitable destruction of our comforting human ego. This unquenchable curiosity is our greatest curse and, at the same time, our greatest inner driving force. It was precisely this curiosity that once compelled us to come down from the trees and attempt to rationally describe this frightening and dark world. We simply cannot stop halfway toward unraveling the great mysteries, even if they hold a threat. But until then, we remain completely blind within our small and fragile planetary system. We continue to circle endlessly around a solitary star, trying to grasp the rules of the game we've been forced to play. Our tiny blue planet flies through cold space, surrounded by worlds we are utterly incapable of understanding. We diligently write our laws of physics, completely unaware of whether they make any sense beyond the atmosphere. This crushing scientific uncertainty is the heaviest burden on our collective and proud human intellect. Think about this frightening fact the next time you look at the bright night light of the silver satellite. You will never again in your life see there the familiar, utterly understandable and boring dead gray rock. You will clearly see before you a gigantic riddle mocking us, one that deliberately and cruelly hides all the answers. This beautiful and cold dome above our heads is full of incredible, terrifying, and, as yet, completely unsolvable mysteries. We stand before a mystery capable of erasing our carefree and naive existence forever. Our familiar reality turned out to be completely different from what we had always joyfully and naively imagined. It is much deeper, far darker, and incomparably more complex than any of our wildest and most intricate mathematical fantasies. Something truly powerful and hidden is shattering our theories right under our noses in the deep, cold cosmos. And we still have absolutely no understanding of the true nature of this grandiose and terrifying universal phenomenon. Perhaps the real hidden truth lies infinitely far beyond the limits of our feeble and limited human perception.